Okay, hello everyone. My name is Dong-Soo Yang, and I'm responsible for the Master Research Seminar course. Today, so this class is a combined class for Master's Research Seminar and also PhD Research Seminar. 지난 시간에 이제 공지한 듯이 이번 수업 시간은 우리 석사 연구 강좌와 박사 연구 강좌가 합반의 형태로 이제 수업이 진행될 예정이고요. 제가 이제 급하게 이제 공지를 올렸듯이, 제 이제 그 학회 일정 때문에, 그러니까 그 출장 일정 때문에 온라인으로 전환이 되었습니다. Yeah, so throughout the course, I will be explaining everything in English, and then for some important things, I'm going to repeat in Korean. So I like to say that in advance. So in today's class, we're going to learn how to design and plan experiments. All right, so first, let's talk about some of the fundamental stuffs. So experiments are used to study causal relationships. So for example, so you first have to come up with questions, right? You first have to come up with questions regarding your project, and then you need to answer the project using experiments. And then those questions are typically related to causal relationships. And those relationships often involve independent variables, 독립변수라고 하죠, 한국말로는. And then also dependent variables, 종속변수라고 하죠. 보통 이제, so independent variables are mostly X, right? So the variables that you need to test, and then dependent variables are usually Y values, right? So the results of the experiments. So first you need to come up with hypothesis, right? And a good experimental design requires a strong understanding of the system you're studying. So a hypothesis can be something like that, something like this. So for example, because I'm working in the field of synthetic biology, maybe I can come up with a hypothesis that so this gene expression system can effectively knock down the expression of the target gene. Maybe that can be my hypothesis. So if my hypothesis is correct, then that gene expression manipulation tool can effectively knock down the target gene expression. But if my hypothesis is not correct, then that tool cannot effectively knock down the target gene expression, right? So next, the experiment design is the laying out of a detailed experimental plan in advance of doing the experiment that will maximize results, right? So you need to always think and design before you start doing experiments. And experimental design is a way to carefully plan experiment in advance so that your results are both objective and valid. So there are key 5 steps in designing an experiment. So first you need to consider your variables, right? So which are the conditions you want to test? Which are the conditions you want to change? And which are the variables that you need to analyze, right? And then you need to make hypothesis, right? Hypothesis means when you do something, then this will result in something, right? And this will be your independent variable, and this will be your dependent variable. And then you need to design experiments to manipulate your independent variables, and then you can group them depending on their conditions and terms, and then plan how you will measure the dependent variables. So that's the basic procedure. So let's take, I'm going to talk about a metaphor of experiment, right? So for example, this is the result that you get. 그러니까 이제 여러분들이 보시는 요 굉장히 지저분한 이 시그널이 어떻게 보면 이제 원래 데이터라고 볼 수가 있는 거죠. 그죠? And then this raw data, right? So this can be the raw data. And then this raw data is actually composed of a signal, right? that can be theoretically predicted and a noise, right? So the signal will be the variable of interest and noise will be everything else, right? That can make it hard to analyze the results. So experimental design seeks to enhance the signal while minimizing the noise, right? In order to clearly identify the causal relationship of experiments. All right, so when you design experiments, you first need to begin with the question as follows. So what are the experimental variables, right? And then you need to remember the research questions. Can a task be performed more quickly with my new interface than with an existing interface? So this can be your research question, for example. Properly formed research questions inherently identify experimental variables. So here, for example, in this research question, so the independent variable can be the interface, right? The new interface versus the existing interface. And then the dependent variable will be the speed of the task, right? 이제 여러분들이 실험 디자인을 할 때 그냥 무작정 내가 이거를 개발해서 이 성능을 테스트를 해야 되니까 이 실험들을 해야지 그냥 이렇게 하는 게 아니고 질문을 던지는 거죠. 굉장히 이제 잘 만들어진 질문을 던져서 내가 어떤 일을 했을 때 이것이 어떤 결과로 이어질 것이다 라는 가설을 만들어야 되죠. 그죠? 그러니까 좋은 질문을 하고 그걸 토대로 베리어블들을 잘 설정을 하고 그러니까 이제 내가 어떤 변수들을 조작을 할지 어떤 인자를 내가 측정을 할지 그거를 결정을 한 다음에 그 다음에 이제 이것들을 이어줄 수 있는 어떤 가설을 잘 만드는 거죠. 그쵸? 그 순서를 잘 지켜서 해야지 내가 실험을 무작정하고 시간을 날리는 게 아니고 최대한 이제 계획적으로 내가 굉장히 충실하게 이 실험을 디자인할 수 있게 됩니다. So there are several things to consider. So first will be the replication. So you perform replication, you perform repeated experiments in order to reduce the effect of uncontrolled variation. And then it helps you getting more accurate estimate of experimental error. And then replication also reduces errors, right? So for example, let's assume that you are a rice breeder, and then he planted his variety A and B in more than one experimental units. 그러니까 이제 예를 들어서 여러분들 실험을 하는데 그 실험 세트가 이제 A 세트가 있고 B 세트가 있죠. 근데 이거를 그냥 한 번씩만 하는 게 아니고 한 번, 두 번, 세 번, 네 번 이런 식으로 반복 실험을 하는 거예요. 그렇죠? 뭐 물론 이제 실험을 어떻게 설계하느냐에 따라서 이 반복 실험이 순차적으로 이루어지는 실험일 수도 있고 또는 동시에 내가 독립적으로 네 개의 실험을 동시에 수행을 할 수도 있겠죠. 어쨌든 간에 이렇게 독립적으로 동일한 실험을 여러 번 반복하는 거를 이제 반복 실험이라고 합니다. Right. So this is to reduce the error and then also increase the accuracy of the results and errors. So typically, when you perform repeated experiments, the number of experiments, the number of replicates should be above 3. So this is often called as triplicates. So if you perform experiments twice, then this is called a duplicate. Sometimes, if it is very, very difficult to repeat experiments multiple times, for example, the reagent is extremely expensive or the experiment is very, very difficult to perform. And then sometimes you can perform experiments twice, but most of the times you need to repeat more than 3 times. In order to more deeply understand the effect of replications and the relevant statistical analysis, I suggest you guys to read this paper about statistics. All right, so first of all, in replications, you need to understand some of the statistical terms, such as mean, 평균, 평균은 여러분들 다 알죠, and variance, 분산. 분산도 굉장히, 분산의 경우에는 굉장히 이제 그 변수들이 얼마나, 어떻게, 어떤 형태로 분포되어 있는지에 대한 그런 설명이죠. So variance is a term that explains how the data points are dispersed, right? And then you also have a standard deviation. This is basically the square root of variance. And then you also have a standard error of mean. That is the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample number. So let me explain this in a bit more detail. So standard deviation is called sigma, right? So this can be calculated. Standard deviation basically means the average distance of the samples from the average value, right? So this is the mean value, right? So this is the mean value. And then this is the actual measurements. So you sum all the distances of the samples from the mean, you sum everything, and then you divide with the number of samples, and then you take the square root. So standard deviation basically means how far the samples are located from the mean, right? So so it basically explains about the distribution of the samples. And standard error means you divide this number with the square root of n. And then we also have 95% confidence interval. So this means this means the confidence interval where statistically more than 95% of all samples are located, right? So this is a 95% confidence interval. So those three are one of the methods of explaining, of representing the errors. 그러니까 이제 표준 편차, 그죠? 이제 표준 편차고 이제 standard error means 표준 오류, 그다음에 이제 confidence interval 이렇게 세 개가 우리가 이제 어떤 측정값에 대한 그 에러, 측정값에 대한 에러. 그러니까 왜냐면은 우리가 이제 예를 들어서 보통 보면은 population이랑 so we always talk about population and sample, right? So again, because I'm working in the field of synthetic biology, let's assume that there is many different bacteria in the environmental sample, right? So there will be millions and millions of bacteria in a sample. So this is the population, right? So this is the population. But when you perform experiments, you randomly pick several numbers of bacteria from them, right? So let's assume that you picked about 5 bacteria, right? 5 bacterial cells. And then those are the samples, right? Because you randomly pick 5 samples out of the millions of bacteria. And then you assume that the population is distributed something like this, and you measure the values like 5 points here, right? And then out of those samples, you calculate the errors that will predict how the population is distributed. 그러니까 이제 population 같은 경우에는 이제 원래 거기에 존재하는 어떤 총 집합이라고 보시면 되고, 그 중에서 이제 샘플은 여러분들이 실제로 측정하는 그런 데이터 포인트들을 의미를 합니다. So let's take a look into the direct comparison between standard deviation, standard error means, and confidence interval. So the first figure panel assumes the same sample means and the same error bar sizes. And then I'm going to revisit what p-value means, but p-value, the lower the p-value, so the lower the p-value means the more different, the more statistically different the samples are, right? So this error bar basically represents several data points, right? And then these values will be the mean, And then the error bar means how the samples are distributed. 그러니까 지금 보시면 여기 이제 중간에 나온 포인트가 평균에 해당하는 포인트고요. 그다음에 이제 이 에러바가 표시를 하는 거는 이 우리가 측정했던 샘플들에서 계산을 한 그 에러가 얼마나 되냐. 그러니까 우리가 측정값에서 계산을 한 측정값으로부터 계산한 스탠다드 디비에이션, 스탠다드 에러, 그다음에 컨피던스 인터벌이 얼마나 이제 크냐. 그거를 이제 의미하는 것이라고 보면은 되겠습니다. 그리고 이제 뒤에서 다시 설명을 하겠지만 이 p-value가 작을수록 우리가 이제 이 첫 번째 실험군 그리고 두 번째 실험군 간의 어떤 statistical significance가 더 크다고 보시면 돼요. 그러니까 p-value가 작을수록 이 첫 번째 실험군과 두 번째 실험군은 더 현저하게 다르다. 더 현저하게 통계학적으로 다른 그런 그룹에 속해 있다라고 보시면 됩니다. Okay, so that means although the error bar sizes are all the same, the standard when you take this example, and this means the two groups are not that much significant. It's not that much significantly different, right? So those groups can be from the same group, right? From the p-value. And then when you take standard deviation, then you can see that the p-value is extremely small, right? Then those two groups are statistically different. It's statistically significant, the difference. And then 95% confidence interval, this is also quite different, right? Because the p-value is quite low. And then let's take a look into the second example. So here we assume the same p-values, right? That means, and then the means of the sample groups have the same number, but the error bar sizes are different, right? That means, so those two groups within these three experimental sets, those two groups are separated with similar population variation because the p-values are the same, but the error bar sizes are different. So that means even though you're using the same experimental data sets, when you choose standard deviation, the error bar is generally larger. When you choose standard error of means, the error bars are generally smaller. And confidence interval is also, the error bars are also quite large. 그러니까 이제 이게 무슨 말이냐면, 이 세 가지 실험 세트에서 p-value가 모두 동일하다는 것은 이 각각의 그러니까 각각의 실험군들의 그 파퓰레이션 분포의 모양이 동일하다고 보시면 돼요. 그러니까 결국에 이 1번 데이터 포인트와 그러니까 이 1번 메저먼트와 2번 메저먼트는 이제 A 실험, B 실험, C 실험을 봤을 때 1번과 2번은 모두 동일하게 모두 비슷한 정도로 이제 분포가 되어 있고 모두 비슷하게 그러니까 통계학적으로 모두 비슷한 정도로 떨어져 있다라고 보시면 되겠습니다. 그러니까 결국에는 똑같은 실험 데이터라고 생각을 하셔도 무방해요. 똑같은 실험 데이터인데 지금 보면은 에러바의 사이즈가 다르죠. 스탠다드 디비전을 썼을 때는 에러바가 굉장히 크고 스탠다드 에러 오브 민즈 같은 경우에는 시그마를 델타 루트 n으로 나누죠. 그렇다 보니까 에러바 사이즈가 줄어드는 거예요. 그렇죠? 그러다 보니까 에러바 사이즈가 줄어드는 거고 컨피던스 인터벌 같은 경우에도 에러 오브 민즈보다는 크고 스탠다드 디비전보다는 작죠. 이게 뭘 의미하냐면 여러분들이 논문을 쓸 때 이제 에러바를 그리잖아요. 그렇죠? 그 에러바의 사이즈만 보고 에러가 어떻게 될 것이다라고 판단하면 안 된다는 거예요. 그 에러바의 사이즈도 보고 그 에러바가 스탠다드 디비전을 의미하는지 스탠다드 에러 민즈를 의미하는지 컨피던스 인터벌을 의미하는지 그거를 잘 살펴보라는 얘기입니다. So this means you shouldn't only compare the error bar sizes when you look at papers. So you also need to take a look at whether the error bars represent standard deviation or standard error means or confidence interval. Because even if you're representing the same data sets, the error bar sizes will be different when you choose between those three. So you're also recommended to study some of the points of significance that is published from Nature Methods. So these series explains very well of how you can use statistics for data analysis. 그러니까 이제 제가 통계학에 대해서 계속 좀 간단하게 설명을 하고 있는데, 물론 이게 통계 시간은 아니지만 이거를 왜 설명을 하는지 뒤에서 보다 자세하게 알려드리긴 하겠지만, 이 통계학을 그래도 기본적으로 알아야 우리가 어떤 데이터를 산출하고 그 데이터를 분석을 하고 다음 실험을 수행함에 있어서 그 결과를 정확하게 우리가 분석하고 넘어갈 수가 있어요. Okay, so let's talk about students' t-test. So t-test is a statistical test used to compare the means of two groups of data. So many times you perform experiments and then you test whether your test group is statistically significant from the control group, right? So this is when you use the student's t-test. So in student's t-test, you need to know about the null hypothesis and also alternative hypothesis. A null hypothesis is a claim that there is no effect in the population, and alternative hypothesis is the opposite. So in null hypothesis, you assume that there is no effect, no difference, no relationship, no change, or does not increase, does not decrease, right? So the symbols used will be equal signs, right? But in alternative hypothesis, it assumes that there is an effect, there is a difference, there is a relationship, there is a change, it whether increases or whether decreases, right? 그러니까 이제 다시 설명을 드리자면 이 null hypothesis라는 게 있는데 이게 이제 굉장히 중요한 개념이에요. 왜냐하면 이 두 가지 그룹이 있는데 이 두 개의 그룹 중에 그러니까 이 두 개 그룹 간에 차이가 없다라고 가정을 하는 거거든요. 그러니까 이제 예를 들어서 우리가 테스트 그룹이 있고 컨트롤 그룹이 있는데 이 테스트 그룹과 컨트롤 그룹 사이에 아무 차이가 없다. 즉 우리가 개발한 전략, 우리가 도입한 이 전략, 우리가 만든 이 가설이 효과가 없다는 거예요, 결국. 이 null hypothesis라는 게 이게 왜 중요한지는 또 뒤에서 나오지만 일단 이거에 대해서 잘 알고 넘어가셔야 되고요. So in null hypothesis, when you calculate the p-value, when the p-value is smaller than a certain number, then that means the null hypothesis is rejected. So that means the alternative hypothesis should be selected, and that means the two groups are statistically different. But when the p-value is larger than a certain threshold, then that means the null hypothesis is accepted. That means the two groups are basically the same. All right, so let's talk about the p-values and t-test some more. All right, so what can we say about whether this difference is due to random chance, right? And statistical testing can answer this question. So what this means is, okay, let's take a look into this example. So for example, I want to test my gene expression regulation tool. So this y-axis, the dependent variable is gene expression. And then I am testing two groups, right? So this is the group without the tool. This is the group with the tool. And then I performed experiments 3 times, triplicates, right? And then I observed that the gene expression was indeed decreased, right, when you compare with the control group, but I'm not really sure whether those numbers are from random errors. So that's why I perform statistical testing in order to conclude whether the experiment had an effect on gene expression. 그러니까 이제 다시 말씀을 드리자면 여러분들이 실험을 하고 예를 들어서 트리플릿 기수로 3개씩 측정을 해서 이제 데이터를 냈는데 그 데이터가 차이가 있어요. 그러니까 컨트롤 그룹이랑 테스트 그룹 간에 분명히 평균 냈을 때는 차이가 있는데 그 차이가 과연 유의미하냐? 왜냐하면은 그 차이가 어떻게 보면 우리가 굉장히 많은 세포 중에서 랜덤하게 고른 거니까 어쩌다 보니까 내가 더 작은 애들을 골랐을 수도 있잖아요. 그렇죠? 3개를 연속으로. 그러니까 이제 그게 이제 정말 통계학적으로 유의미하게 차이가 있을 확률을 우리가 계산을 하는 거죠. 통계학은 모두 이제 다 확률에 기한을 하는 거거든요. Okay, so let's take a look into the first figure. So let's assume that this is the reference point, right? So the predicted point of predicted average of the population, and then x is the actual observed value. And then you draw this distribution of the population, and then you calculate the probability of observing a more extreme value, right? So x is here, and you calculate the probability of observing more extreme values, right? If this probability is smaller, then that means your measured value is statistically distinct from the original population, right? All right, so let's take a look into the next figure. So in figure 1, this is just one experiment, right? In figure 2, this is the case where you perform multiple experiments. So you perform repeated observations of expression, and then you can either calculate the standard deviation or standard error of means. Yeah, so you repeat the experiment in order to measure the spread of H0, right? For example, you can make 4 additional independent measurements to make the sample up to n equal 5. And then you can measure the average values of your measurements, right? And then you next make the assumption that the standard deviation is a suitable estimate of the standard deviation of the null distribution. So that means we assume that the variances are equal in the original population and also your measurements, right? All right, in the student's t-test, there are two-sided or two-tailed or one-sided and one-tailed. So in two-sided student's t-test, so in the in this Gaussian distribution, let's take an example that your measurement is here, right? So in two-sided or two-tailed student's t-test, it doesn't really care whether your point is larger than the mu value or lower than the mu value. So in two-tailed student's t-test, it measures whether your experimental value is statistically different from the original population. So the null hypothesis is whether it's the same, and the alternative hypothesis is whether it's different. But the one-sided or one-tailed student's t-test, you need to choose the side, right? You need to choose whether you need to make an assumption. So when you make hypothesis, you need to choose whether you make hypothesis of the upper side or you make hypothesis with the lower side. 그러니까 이제 다시 말씀을 드리자면 two-tailed student t-test 같은 경우에는 이 우리가 측정값이 그 이제 original population의 뮤값보다 크든 작든 상관이 없어요. 그러니까 이제 내가 측정한 값이 내가 비교하고자 하는 그 그룹의 population이랑 비교했을 때 통계학적으로 유의미하게 다르냐 아니면 다르지 않냐 그거를 의미하는 거고 one-sided, one-tailed는 얘가 더 크냐 통계학적으로 유의미하게 더 크냐 또는 통계학적으로 유의미하게 더 작냐 이거를 이제 사이드를 골라야 된다라는 얘기고요. Yeah, so the plausibility of the hypotheses are determined in terms of p-value given a significance level, the likelihood of a null hypothesis being wrong calculated based on the dataset. 그러니까 이제 p-value가 무슨 뜻이냐면 결국에는 이거예요. 그러니까 이제 우리가 비교하고자 하는 원래 population이 이제 이렇게 있는데 우리가 이제 어떤 데이터를 측정을 했더니 그 측정한 데이터 값이 예를 들어 여기에 나왔다. 그러면은 우리가 측정한 이 값이 이 원래 population에서 굉장히 동떨어져 있을 굉장히 이제 동떨어져 있을 때 그 확률이 얼마나 되냐 그거죠. 그럼 결국에 이제 그 확률은 요 커브 아래에 있는 면적에 해당하는 것이 확률이기 때문에 예를 들어서 요 에어리아를 우리가 계산을 했을 때 이게 보통은 so normally when you calculate the area under this curve when the probability of your sample being observed outside this thresholds is lower than 0.05 then you say that your sample is significantly different, is statistically significantly different from the original population. 그러니까 이제 보통 p-value가 작을수록 두 개의 집단이 통계학적으로 유의미하게 다르다라고 얘기를 하는 것은 그 어떤 우리가 측정한 샘플이 원래 population에서 굉장히 동떨어져 있을 그 확률이 점점점 높아진다. 즉 우리의 그 원래 population에서 그 측정값을 발견할 확률이 굉장히 작다라는 의미로 생각을 하시면 돼요. 그러니까 이제 어떻게 보면 이해하기가 좀 어려울 수도 있는데 결국에는 이 p-value라는 것은 그 원 population에서 우리가 이제 측정한 값이 발견될 확률이라고 보시면 되거든요. 그러니까 이제 그 발견될 확률이 작을수록 이 우리가 측정한 데이터는 원래 population과는 굉장히 동떨어진 애일 가능성이 높다라는 거겠죠. 즉 p-value가 작을수록 이 두 집단은 더 통계학적으로 유의미하게 다르다라는 것이 되는 겁니다. So if p-value is smaller than a particular data set such as 0.05 or 0.01, the null hypothesis is rejected. That means the two groups are different, right? So in contrast, when p-value is larger than the threshold, then there's no substantial evidence to reject the null hypothesis. That means you accept the null hypothesis, but it's not always necessary. But I'm not going to talk about this in detail because it's quite complicated. All right, so student's t-test is most commonly used when you make hypothesis on single or two populations. But if the number of populations is more than two, if it's like 3, 4, so when you're comparing more than two populations, then you need to use ANOVA. So in ANOVA, when you compare more than two populations, when the p-value is smaller than a certain threshold, you reject the null hypothesis. That means you reject the null hypothesis that all the populations are same. So that means at least one population among these four are different. So that's a bit different with the student's t-test. 그러니까 이제 스튜던트 t-test는 p-value를 계산을 해서 얘가 이제 어떤 특정 값보다 작으면 우리가 테스트하고자 하는 이 두 가지 그룹이 다르다, 통계학적으로 다르다라는 의미인 거고요. 아노바에서는 이게 이제 우리가 비교하고자 하는 집단이 두 개 이상일 때를 얘기를 하는데, 이 p-value가 어떤 특정 threshold보다 작을 때 적어도 한 개 이상의 그룹이 나머지와 다르다라는 것을 의미를 합니다. 이제 그게 달라요. So normally when you compare more than two populations, then you first perform ANOVA and you make a decision whether at least one of the groups are different. And then you also need to perform additional statistical testings in order to compare between individual groups of populations. So again, null hypothesis means there's no effect in the population, right? So for example, when you compare the blood pressure of 6 mice fed salt water and 6 mice fed plain water, and then so the delta will be the true difference in the average parameters between the two groups, right? So the null hypothesis means delta is 0, right? So no effect. So if delta is 0, then you can put here the delta as 0. And then, so this white line will be, for example, let's assume that the white line is the population of the mice fed with plain water, right? But when you perform experiments, and then when you compare, when you measure the blood pressure of mice fed with salt water, and then let's assume that you measured here, the observed value is here. And then the probability that this value, that additional data points is observed in more extreme values is 2.5%, right? So that's the probability. 2.5 and 2.5, so plus is 5%. So if C is chosen, so that the chance you reject H0 is 5%. So that's what the p-value means. So let's take in another, I'm going to explain to you about another example using an Excel file. So I will also upload the supplementary data to the Blackboard in order to help you guys understand. So I want to compare between these two groups, and there are two different experiments. So the first experiment is performed in day 2, the second experiment is performed in day 14, and then I would like to test whether these two groups are statistically different. I haven't really explained to you about one concept, but because I don't really want to go into too much detail into the statistics, I'm going to skip this. So there is another test called the F-test. So the F-test tests whether the variance between these two groups are same or different. All right, in the previous slides, I told you that in students' t-test, you normally assume equal variances between between two groups, right? But in order to be more accurate, you actually need to also calculate whether the two groups are of equal variance or unequal variance. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. All right, so you first perform F-test for the two groups, and then the null hypothesis in this F-test will be equal variance. And when you calculate the p-value is larger than the threshold, normally 0.05, right? Then that means the null hypothesis is accepted. So the two groups are of equal variance. But in the second example, the p-value is lower than 0.05. That means it's the null hypothesis is rejected, so it's unequal variance. And then you perform students' t-test. So in students' t-test, there are also several types. So you first perform students' t-test two-sided and equal variance, right? And then unpaired, because these two groups are independent measurements. And then the p-value is 0.09. That's higher than 0.05. Then you accept the null hypothesis. And in the second example, this is a two-sided, unequal variance, unpaired, and then you calculate the p-value, and then it's lower than 0.05. So you reject null hypothesis. That means these two groups are very, very different. So you can actually just know by looking to the numbers, right? So those two numbers in day 2, they are very similar, but the numbers in day 14, they're very, very different. So that's why the p-value was very small. And you can also test one-sided students t-test as well. And then you can see that the results are different. The p-values are calculated to be different. To be more practical, I like to also introduce you about this paper that explains to you how to use statistics in Excel. 여러분도 이제 데이터 프로세싱 할 때 이제 보통 엑셀을 많이 쓰시기 때문에 이제 엑셀을 활용해서 어떻게 이런 계산을 할 수 있는지 뭐 간단하게 설명을 좀 드리겠습니다. So first of all, you can use the function average to calculate the average. You can also use the functions median or mode. And in order to calculate standard deviation, you type in stdv for calculate the standard deviation. And if you want to calculate the standard error or means, you need to divide this with the square root of the number of samples, right? So you divide standard deviation with the square root of the sample numbers. And then you can also calculate the confidence interval by using the function confidence. Yeah, so this is an example of calculating the mean, median, modes, variance, standard deviation, standard error means, and confidence interval. You can test these with your own data as well. You can also perform t-test using Excel. So in Excel, you can type in t-test and you can designate the range 1, the first group, and the second groups, whether it's two-tailed or one-tailed. And then you can also designate the type of t-test. So number 1 means they are paired data. Number 2 means they're unpaired data, right? So paired data means two sets from the same individuals. And unpaired data means sets that are very different, so they are independent with each other. So let's take an example. So in the first experiments, you measure the yield of potatoes using two different fertilizers, right? So those two different fertilizers are independent with each other. So that's why you performed type 2 student t-test. And then you want to know whether they are different or not. So this is a two-tailed, right? So this is the normal condition that you would use, two-tailed and type 2 student t-test. And then you designate the ranges of two different groups. But in the second experiment, so this is measuring the same potato before eating and after eating, right? So this is measuring the pulse rate, right? So this, the pulse rate of the same human beings, right? Before eating and after eating. So that's why you use type 1 students t-test, and this is also the two-tailed because you want to just compare whether they're different or not. 그러니까 이제 스튜던트 t-테스트의 타입에 대해서도 정확하게 알 필요가 있는데 이 타입 2의 경우에는 완전히 다른 두 실험군을 비교할 때 얘기를 하는 거고요. 두 그룹을. 그다음 타입 1은 동일한 이제 그러니까 동일한 실험 대상을 다른 조건에서 측정한 거를 비교할 때 우리가 타입 1을 씁니다. 그다음에 이제 대부분의 경우에는 우리가 방향성을 따지지 않고 그냥 이 두 그룹이 이제 statistically 다르냐 아니면 같냐 그것만 보기 때문에 이제 타입 2를 보통 많이 쓰고요. 그래서 대부분의 경우에는 이 엑셀에다가 이 2를 집어넣는다라고 생각을 하시면 되겠습니다. And you can also perform ANOVA in Excel. So here the p-value is 0.14%. That means is 0.0014, right? So this is the p-value. So that means at least one of the groups among these three variables are different. So you can see that those two groups are all similar, but this one is very different, right? So this is using ANOVA when you compare more than two different populations. All right, so controls are also very important. So you can either set up negative control and positive control. So negative control provides reference to measure the effect of the independent variable, which is essential information for the hypothesis testing. 그러니까 이제 네거티브 컨트롤 같은 경우에는 한마디로 우리가 이제 백그라운드 노이즈 같은 게 얼마나 되냐 그거를 측정하기 위한 어떤 용도라고 보시면 되겠습니다. 그러니까 이제 인디펜던트 베리어블의 효과를 측정을 함에 있어서 어떤 기준이 되는 점, 기준점을 이 대주는 게 이제 네거티브 컨트롤이라고 볼 수 있겠고, and positive control is used to assess the validity of the test or observation. 그러니까 이제 한마디로 그 내가 지금 하고 있는 실험이 잘 된 실험인데 결과가 이렇게 나온 건지, 실험이 잘 안 돼서 결과가 이렇게 나온 건지 그거를 측정하기 위한 것이라고 보면 되겠습니다. Sometimes positive control may not be applicable, right? So let's take a look into my example. So this is from my data. So here the null hypothesis will be application of a gene expression knockdown tool will have no effect in the expression of the target gene. So target gene was a GFP, green fluorescence protein. So as a negative control, I used E. coli with no GFP at all. And as you can see here, even though the E. coli strains had no GFP, they showed a little bit of signal, right? So I wanted to measure what is the fluorescence signal from E. coli strain that does not harbor any GFP. So this is the negative control, and positive control will be the E. coli with GFP without harboring the target gene knockdown tool, right? So this will be the maximum value, right? And then by measuring the positive control, I now know that the experiment had no problem, right? Because I could clearly observe the fluorescence level. And then this is the measurement, the actual measurement of the samples. And then now I know that when I compare with the positive control, I could see that the gene expression level was significantly reduced in my samples. So I performed students' t-test, and then I here noted as an asterisk that this is a statistically significant. So normally, actually this is dependent on different experiments, but normally people designate using the number of asterisks, right? So when there is one asterisk, normally it's the p-value is lower than 0.05. When the asterisk, there are two asterisks, normally 0.01. When there is three asterisks, normally it's 0.001. So very, very significant. And when it's not significant, when p-value is higher than 0.05, then I designate as not significant. Right, so there are other things to consider, such as randomization. So in some experiments, the sequence of performing experiments in different groups can affect the data. So let's take a look into this example. So again, there is a rice breeder having two treatments. And then the number of replications is 4. So the number of total experimental units is 8 because I'm testing two different treatments. And then a non-random layout will be testing A first and then testing B. A first, B, A first, B, A first, B. But there is a chance for example, fertility gradient or other bias from one direction to another. So randomization can help obtaining more accurate data. For example, in the first experiment, you test B first, then A. And then in the next experiment, you test A first and then B, right? So this is a randomization. And then there are also some other local control aspects. So for example, blocking. So you arrange the experimental units into blocks of similar entities. So observations collected under similar experimental conditions are grouped in the same block. 그러니까 이제 여러 실험군들을 테스트를 해야 되는데 걔네들을 이제 유사한 환경에서 테스트를 해야 되는 그런 실험군들끼리 묶어서 실험을 할 수 있다라는 거죠. So blocking residues, sources of deviations, and thereby bringing more precision to the experimental design. And then you also need to consider balancing, right? So you need to consider balancing in order to make the experimental sequences in a balanced arrangement of treatments. 그러니까 이제 랜더마이제이션을 해야 되기는 하는데 이거를 또 너무 무작위로 섞어버리면 또 예측 못한 그런 에러가 발생할 수도 있으니까 어느 정도 이제 밸런스 된 상태로 이제 분포를 해서 우리가 이제 실험을 해야 된다라는 거죠. 그러니까 예를 들어서 그런 거죠. 이제 두 번째 실험군이랑 세 번째 실험군에서 둘 다 두 번째 시퀀스에 C를 놓는 게 아니고 이제 지금 보시면 이제 A가 잘 이렇게 배분이 돼 있죠. 이런 식으로. B도 이런 식으로 잘 배분이 돼 있고 C도 이런 식으로 잘 배분이 있고. 그러니까 이런 식으로 이제 우리가 굉장히 그 실험 순서라든지 이런 것들을 이제 밸런스를 잘 맞춰서 이제 분배를 해야 된다. 랜더마이제이션을 하면서라는 말입니다. And then you also need to choose the proper plot techniques. So there are a bunch of different graphs and plots that you can choose from depending on different purposes and different data characteristics. So you can go into this reference and read this table more and study this table more deeply in order to help doing your research. And then there are several things to consider regarding data presentation. So for example, a good plot will contain rich information, right? So for example, here there is a data of mean and also error bar that represents either standard deviation or standard errors. And then you also have these individual data points, right? This is also very important because by displaying individual data points, you can clearly see how the data are distributed, right? But a bad plot doesn't have this information at all. So let's take a look into this example. So actually, in panel A, this is already acceptable in many papers, but you can further improve the data as follows. So the further right side, the better the graph. So for example, you can use the box plot right here that explains about the error bars, the means, and also the quartiles. And you also notify the p-value range here. And you can further improve it by providing individual data points, as well as the average value and also the standard, the error bars. And you can explicitly write the value of the p-value of the statistical significance. But you can further improve it by providing this null hypothesis distribution, right? So you can further improve it by, so this is null hypothesis perspective. So you further improve it by providing the null hypothesis distribution. But you can still further improve this data by providing the distribution related to the mean difference, right? So here, the 0 represents the first, represents the average value of the control group, and the delta represents the average value of the second experimental group. And then it also represents the distribution of the delta values here. So by using this graph E, you can give as much statistical data as possible to the readers. 그런데 사실 이제 여러분들이 이제 그래프를 그릴 때 이제 대부분의 경우에는 이제 아마 A의 방식으로 그래프를 그리게 될 텐데 이제 한 C 정도만 돼도 사실 굉장히 이제 인포머티브하다라고 보실 수가 있긴 하겠죠. 저도 이제 논문들을 많이 봤지만 D나 E처럼 이제 엄밀하게 이렇게 데이터를 표현하는 것은 거의 이제 본 적이 없긴 합니다. So the author of this paper developed a data plotting website called data plotting website. So when you go into this website then and you click it, and then when you provide the data, and then I didn't show here, but they provide, so this tool automatically provides you a very detailed graph as shown here. So if you want to draw a graph something like this, then you can go into this website and then you can upload your data, and then you'll get this very nice graph. Okay, so another example, so there's a good table and bad table, because here you kept the significant numbers consistently, right? 그러니까 이제 한국말로 하면 이제 유효숫자, 저 유효숫자를 굉장히 잘 지켰고, 이제 bad table에서는 유효숫자는 완전히 무시를 했죠. There are also other points to consider. So for example, blinding means measurements made by people can be influenced by unconscious biases. So ideally, you need to measure the samples without the knowledge of the treatment applied. So for example, let's assume that you're testing something, right? So let's assume that, all right, what can be examples? So let's assume that you're growing different groups of bacteria, and then you know that the bacteria that grows better is more probable to give better results. So you only select bacteria that is growing better. So that's that should be avoided, because you should not know the knowledge of the treatments applied before getting the final data. So you should be blinded to the results. 이제 무슨 말이냐면, 그 실험을 할 때 우리가 측정값을, 그러니까 이제 샘플들을 얻어서 이제 측정을 할 때 랜덤으로 샘플을 셀렉션을 해서 이제 측정을 해야 되는데, 결과가 어떻게 나오느냐에 따라서 그 샘플들의 특성이 어떻게 달라질지를 우리가 예를 들어서 미리 알고 있는 상황이다. 그러니까 이제 더 잘 자라는 균주가 더 좋은 결과를 보여줄 것이라는 것을 우리가 미리 예를 들어 알고 있어요. 그 시행착오를 통해서. 그래서 균주들을 더 잘 자라는 균주들만 골라서 실험을 하는 거죠. 그거는 이제 잘못됐다. 그래서 우리는 이제 그런 결과에 대해서 블라인드가 되어야 되기 때문에 그런, 어떻게 보면 이제 우리가 우리의 가설과 부합하지 않는 그런 정보는 철저하게 배제한 채 랜덤하게 샘플을 골라서 실험을 해야 된다라는 겁니다. And you can also apply internal controls. Yeah, they can be useful to use the subjects themselves as their own controls, right, in order to increase the precision. Internal controls can be also used for chemical analysis. So for example, let's assume that you want to measure mass spectrometer. of an unknown sample X, right? And then here you can add a little bit of a known sample Y, a known sample. This is called the internal control, because when you perform mass, then because of this known sample, you can clearly see, for example, the identity, the intensity or concentration of your chemical X by comparing with the concentration of the known chemical Y, right? 그러니까 이제 예를 들어서 HPLC라든지 MES라든지 뭐 GC라든지 그런 것들을 찍을 때 우리가 알고 있는 어떤 인터널 컨트롤을 첨가해서 찍으면 이제 우리가 모르는 샘플을 분석을 할 때도 이제 그 알고 있는 샘플과 비교해서 더 정확하게 우리가 분석을 할 수 있다라는 거죠. 그러니까 예를 들어서 이런 예시가 있을 수가 있을 것 같아요. 그러니까 이제 GC를 예를 들어 GC나 또는 LC를 찍는데 이게 이제 우리가 측정하고자 하는 샘플이에요. 그렇죠? 이거를 이제 1번 샘플을 측정했고 2번 샘플을 측정을 했는데 이게 측정 때마다 이 정확도가 달라질 수가 있잖아요. 그렇죠? 그렇기 때문에 우리가 농도를 알고 있고 진위를 알고 있는 인터널 컨트롤 하나를 집어넣는 거죠. 이렇게 농도를 알고 있어요. 이게 예를 들어 100mg per 리터다. 그런데 측정을 해보니까 내가 이거 계산을 해보니까 90밖에 안 나왔어요. 예를 들어서 측정을 해보니까. 그러면 측정 방법에 오류가 있어서 원래 100이 나와야 될 게 90이 나왔구나 라는 걸 알 수 있어서 이 값도 그에 맞게 보정을 할 수가 있겠죠. Alright, so let me explain once more. So, for example, let's assume that you added an internal control when measuring an unknown sample, right? And depending on the equipment condition and variations between different experimental sets, the accuracy can be changed, right? So here you can add a little bit of internal control, the known chemical with known concentration. For example, let's assume that the concentration is about 100 milligram per liter. And then you analyze the sample, and then when you calculated the area, you get 90 milligram per liter of the internal control. And then you can know that, my sample is the analysis was a little bit wrong, right? It was a little bit inaccurate. So based on this analysis, you can recalculate the concentration of your unknown sample, right? So this is the function of internal controls. And also you need to consider representativeness. So are the subjects, are the tissues, are the cells you're studying, are they really representing the population that you want to study, right? Okay, so this is up to here. This is about like statistical things and also things to consider when you design experiments. And let's move on to the real examples of planning experiments. So this is an example of experimental plans of myself performed in 2022. So this is quite formal because this is for reporting to my previous advisor. So depending on research themes, I have been performing 4 different projects at the same time. So I write down some of the things that done this work and then also my plans that will be done next week. So by doing so, and I also set up the deadlines that I can, it's not written everywhere, but I also set up deadlines. By doing so, I will be able to know the things that I'll be doing next week and the things that needs to be completed, right? So some of the things that needs to be completed next week, right? And at the start of the year, I also make yearly plans, right? So things to be done in January, in February, in March, according to different number of projects. And then, because you don't precisely know what you'll be doing in the next several months. I make plans, very brief plans for the upcoming months, right? So by doing so, so you will be able to set up the detailed experimental plans for the upcoming months and also the whole year, right? 이제 여러분들이 대학원 생활을 하다 보면 이제 어떤 거를 느낄 거냐면 하루는 안 가는데 1년이 빨리 가요. 그러니까 이제 무슨 말이냐면 하루는 진짜 힘든데 되돌아보면 시간이 굉장히 빨리 간다는 소리입니다. 그 말인즉슨 실험 계획을 굉장히 철저하게 세워서 내가 이제 향후 뭐 한두 달 정도는 정말 좀 디테일하게 플랜을 세울 수가 있고, 근데 이제 물론 그 뒤에는 내가 정확하게 언제, 언제까지 뭘 할지에 대해서 알기는 어렵긴 하지만, 그래도 대략적으로는 내가 몇 달 뒤에 이 실험을 마칠 거고, 몇 달 뒤에 저 실험을 마칠 거고, 그래서 이 프로젝트를 내가 언제까지 마무리를 지어서 논문을 쓰겠다라는 플랜을 나와 있어야 여러분들이 이제 뒤처지지 않게 실험을 마무리를 할 수가 있어요. 안 그러면 그러니까 이런 단기, 중장기 플랜을 세우지 않고 실험을 하게 되면 정말 프로젝트가 한도 끝도 없이 늘어지게 됩니다. 그래서 여러분들의 졸업도 굉장히 미뤄지게 되니까 이런 데일리 플랜, 위클리 플랜, 먼슬리 플랜, 그리고 이어리 플랜이 굉장히 중요하다고 말씀을 드리고 싶어요. Yeah, so let's share some of my tips when I have been doing experiments. So first, when I come to the lab, I first set up a daily experimental plan right after arriving at the lab. So this is an example. So for example, today I need to finish this ligation. I also need to analyze the LCMS analysis, TLC analysis, GC analysis. I need to transform the bacteria with this plasmid, and I need to also perform Gibson assembly and then transform to the E. coli. I also need to inoculate this plasmid. I also need to perform PCR, this PCR reaction, and then I write down the protocol that I will be performing today, right? So this is my daily plan for today. And then I write okay when I finish the experiments. Okay, 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 okay. And then until I check all the things with okay, I don't go to home. So once I finish the experiments, and then I can go home, right? So this was how I plan experiments and then finish experiments so that I can make the schedule up to date. And then I also set up weekly experimental plans, but I couldn't find this because I've already thrown away. So I didn't show the data here. But I also make weekly plans, right? So for example, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So for example, I need to do this experiment. I need to start this, and then I need to prepare this on Tuesday, and then I start the experiment on Wednesday, and then finish on Friday, right? And then another experiment, I start on Tuesday, I prepare on Wednesday, I do this on Wednesday, I also do something in Thursday, and then finish on Sunday, right? Something like that. So you need to briefly plan weekly experimental plans, and then on the daily basis, I strongly suggest you to make a plan either before you go home or right after coming to the lab. Okay, and then you also need to briefly check experiment plans within 1 month because you first, for example, you need to order reagents. That takes a lot of time, or reserve analytic equipment in advance, and so on and so on. 이제 다시 말씀을 드리자면 이건 제가 뭐 택했던 방법이라 여러분들은 이제 다른 방식으로 실험을 하실 수가 있을 텐데 당연히 저 같은 경우에는 이제 랩에 처음에 딱 출근을 하면 그날 할 일들을 다 적고 그리고 이제 그 적으면은 뭐가 좋냐면 내가 예를 들어서 멀티 프로젝트를 하고 있다. 2개, 3개 프로젝트를 하고 있다. 그러면 거기에서 이제 비슷한 실험들이 있잖아요. 예를 들어서 1번, 2번, 3번 프로젝트에서 다 비슷한 실험을 해야 되면 걔네들을 묶어서 내가 한꺼번에 실험을 할 수도 있고, 그리고 이제 내가 하루 동안의 어떤 시간 스케줄을 짤 수가 있잖아요. 대략적으로. 뭐 저녁 먹기 전까지는 이 실험을 해놓고, 뭐 저녁을 먹고 와서 내가 이걸 이어서 하고, 이런 그래도 간단한 플랜은 내가 세울 수가 있기 때문에 처음 랩에 와서 이제 내가 할 일들을 다 이제 플랜을 짜놓고 그게 끝나야지 이제 집에 갈 수 있는 거지. 예를 들어서 그게 막 새벽에 끝난다. 그럼 새벽에 가는 거고, 오늘은 좀 일찍 끝났어. 오늘은 좀 뭐 일찍 끝났다. 그러면 일찍 뭐 집에 갈 수도 있고. 이런 식으로 이제 매일매일 계획을 세워놓고, 그다음에 이제 위클리 플랜도 간단하게 세워서 내가 이제 어느 날에 어떤 실험을 할지에 대해서 대략적으로 파악을 하고 있고, 왜냐면 예를 들어서 주말의 경우에는 뭐 내가 어떤 분석을 맡겨야 되는 회사가 일을 하지 않고 아니면은 뭐 어떤 기계를 써야 되는데 쓰지 못하고 그래서 내가 이제 월요일 날 뭐 분석을 하려면 뭐 금요일이나 토요일 날 뭘 준비해야 되고 이런 플랜들이 있잖아요. 그러니까 그런 플랜들을 내가 유기적으로 굉장히 잘 세우기 위해서는 이 위클리 플랜도 간단하게 세워야 되고 그다음에 이제 먼틀리 플랜은 어 뭐 사실 실험 계획이라는 게 이제 뭐 맨날 뜻대로 되는 건 아니니까 너무 디테일하게 세울 건 없지만 그래도 내가 실험을 하기 위해서 예를 들어서 시간이 오래 걸리는 것들 있잖아요. 뭔가 뭐 합성을 맡겨야 된다든지 뭐 어디 이제 다른 공동 연구팀에 부탁을 할 게 있다든지 아니면은 뭐 해외에서 배송이 오는 뭐 한 달이 걸리는 그런 해외에서 배송이 와야 되는 시약을 시킨다든지 아니면은 이제 뭐 어떤 분석 센터에 이제 분석을 미리 내가 예약을 해야 된다든지 이런 오래 걸리는 것들을 미리 내가 계획을 해야 되기 때문에 이렇게 먼틀리 관련한 것도 이제 간단하게 계획은 좀 세워두는 게 좋다라는 겁니다. And when you learn experiments and when you learn some important conditions when you perform experiments, you need to first study the materials and methods section in papers that includes detailed experimental protocols that you would like to learn. And then I actually didn't put it in this slide, but uh, especially for biological engineers, you can go to Nature Protocols or cell star methods. So these are excellent sources for learning experiments because they provide a very detailed protocols of important experiments, right? Especially new experiments. And you can also learn specific conditions used for experiments done in the paper by reading the materials and methods section, but it's not always written in detail. 그러니까 이제 많은 경우에는 저자들이 이 Materials and Methods 섹션을 작성을 할 때 물론 이 섹션만 보고도 내가 실험을 재현할 수 있게 굉장히 자세하게 써야 되는 게 맞기는 하지만 사실 실상은 이 Materials and Methods 섹션을 보고도 내가 재현이 안 되거나 또는 이제 여기에 생략되어 있는 어떤 사소한 정보들, 그렇죠? 그 사소한 정보들이 굉장히 어떻게 보면 실험에 중요한데 생략되어 있는 사소한 정보들이 있기 때문에 So in many cases, you need to send emails to the corresponding authors or first authors to ask for more details in experiments. And important thing to consider when you also design experiments in order to increase the impact of your research is ask yourself how you can generally apply the implication of the results in terms of science or application of the invention in terms of technology. 이제 다시 말씀을 드리자면 여러분들이 어떤 과학적으로 중요한 발견을 했다. 그러면 그게 어떻게 자연에 더 확장이 될 수 있을 것이냐, 그 발견이. 또는 여러분들이 어떤 뭐 기술을 뭐 개발을 했다. 그럼 내가 개발한 기술이 과연 얼마나 넓게 적용이 될 수 있을 것인가. 그거를 이제 고민해 보는 게 굉장히 연구의 이제 임팩트를 높이는 데 중요하다라는 말입니다. And you also need to actively learn experiments from your lab seniors, and also you need to take notes. So these are my notes that I learned from lab seniors. And if lab seniors are not available, you can also go to other labs where experiments are available. And you can ask for help through your advisor, through your professor, if you want to ask for help in other labs. You can also search YouTube in order to learn new experiments if nothing is available. 저 같은 경우에도 이제 예를 들어서 플래시 크로마토그래피를 할 줄 아는 사람이 주변에 아무도 없어서 유튜브를 보고 이제 어떤 기구가 필요한지 다 주문을 하고 유튜브를 보고 이제 실험을 이제 시행착오를 겪으면서 하고 이런 식으로 이제 실험을 배운 적이 있습니다. 사실 여러분들 생각보다 유튜브에서 배울 수 있는 실험들이 굉장히 많아요. And if the analytical equipment is difficult to access because it's very expensive, it's very rare, then you can search for some public services such as KBSI, IBS, CRIPT, and etc. And I like to also introduce you to Kanban board. So Kanban board is a very efficient tool for writing down the progress and also set up experimental plans. So in Kanban board, you can divide your tasks. You can divide your experiments into plan, backlog, in progress, and done. So in order to learn how to use, so this is actually done in Notion. So if you want to use Notion, then you can go into the tutorial and then you can learn yourself. So this is, for example, when you click one task, and then you can also input some information here. So you can click the status, you can designate the people in charge if you're doing, if you're co-working with other people. And then you can also set up some milestones, right? So these are the milestones that when you complete them, then you will finish the project. So you can then designate the milestones, you can write the references, attachments, and also you can write down some of the important information here. And you can also see them as the list of tasks, and you can also see them as a timeline, because you can also designate the deadlines of each task. All right, so next I like to move on to writing proposals, because if you want to perform an experiment, if you want to do a project, then you first need to write proposals and then you get the research fundings. 이거는 사실 이제 여러분들 그 프로포절 준비하는데도 이제 어떻게 보면 좀 도움이 될 수 있도록 이제 준비를 좀 했고요. So these are some of the governmental websites that you can get information about grant information. You can also get some grants from the industry. You can also get some grants from the national labs, and also there's some limited opportunities of Korea University internal fundings. And as for you guys, you can also apply for a master or doctorate student fundings provided by the Korean National Research Foundation. 이제 최근 들어서 이제 석사과정생 그리고 박사과정생 연구 장려금 펀딩 기회가 이제 늘어나고 있기 때문에 여러분들도 이제 프로포저를 열심히 쓰셔서 이제 여러분과 여러분 연구실에 이제 도움이 될 수 있도록 하면은 좋을 것 같고요. So when you take a look into the grant opportunities, then you will see RFP. RFP is a request for proposal. So this is where all the information necessary for writing a proposal is included. So you can see the name of the RFP, the name of the project, the background of the project, and the objective of the project, and what should be achieved in different years or different stages of the project, and what are some of the deliverables or achievements that you need to achieve during the proposal, and then some of the important things that you need to note, and how long is it, how much money is included in these grants, and so on. So in order to write a proposal, so you first need to provide a summary of your proposal and what is the target problem that you want to solve, and why is the problem important, and what is the main difference why is your project that you suggest is different with other projects or other proposals, right? So that's the introduction part. 그러니까 이제 처음에 이제 연구의 개요를 이제 설명을 하고, 그쵸? 왜냐면 이제 요약을 읽어야 그 과제 심사하는 분들이 이제 전체적인 내용을 더 파악하기 쉬우니까요. 그다음에 이제 연구 동향과 필요성, 중요성을 통해서 우리가 해결하고자 하는 문제가 왜 중요한지, 그리고 우리가 제안하는 기술이, 우리가 제안하는 연구가 그동안의 연구와는 왜 차별이 되는지. 그러니까 결국에 이 연구는 공짜로 하는 게 아니에요. 그러니까 이제 그 펀딩을 정부에서 이제 세금으로 주거나 아니면 이제 회사에서 주는 건데, 정부에서 이제 세금으로 주는 경우에는 정말 우리가 국익 향상을 이룩할 수 있다거나 아니면 어떤 과학적으로 정말 그동안에 아무도 발견하지 못했던 그런 새로운 어떤 과학적인 발견을 하거나, 그래서 이제 국위 선양을 하거나 이런 식으로 어찌됐든 간에 우리가 국민들에게 뭔가 기여하는 바가 있어야 돼요. 회사 펀딩의 경우에는 이제 회사의 이익 창출에 이제 기여할 수 있는 그런 기술이 돼야겠죠. 그래서 그 필요성에 대해서 이제 어필을 잘해야 되고, and then the second part will be the uniqueness and how innovative is the suggested research. 그러니까 이제 창의성, 도전성 그런 걸 이제 부각을 시켜야 되고, and then the next part will be the objective and also the content of the research, depending on the yearly plans, right? So first year, second year, third year, you describe the research in detail in the main part, and then you write down some of the objectives in the first year, second year, third year, and then you can also suggest how many papers, how many patents that you're going to publish by the support, and then the yearly and quarterly plans of the research, and then lastly, how this research outcomes will be applied in the field. How is it? How will it? So, how do you expect the experimental outcomes, the project outcomes, will be useful for the society and also for the scientific community, right? And you also need to suggest the money that you will be using, depending on the different purposes, right? So, for example, how much for student stipend, how much for the equipment, how much for attending conferences, how much for setting up the lab, and so on. And lastly, so this will be the proposal format that you will be preparing for your midterm proposal. So first, you can summarize the problem that you're going to solve and what is your unique solution, and then you need to describe the importance of your problems. So you need to first explain and define your working field, and why should you get money to solve your problem, and what have other people done to solve the problem, and why your approach is different, why your project is unique. And then you go to your research goal and your suggested answer. So how will you perform experiments? How will you do research in order to solve the problem? And is your solution feasible? That means, is it achievable? And then you also suggest, do you have enough competence? That means, have you published any similar papers? Have you done any similar experiments before? Something like that. And then lastly, you need to suggest the period and amount of money needed. And for master students, I suggest you to assume a 2-year project with 50 million Korean won per year. 그래서 이거는 이제 특히 이제 제 수업 같은 경우에 이제 프로포저를 어떤 식으로 준비를 해야 되는지를 제가 이제 좀 가이드라인을 드리는 거고요. 이제 다음과 같은 순서로 이제 여러분들이 발표를 준비를 하시면 되겠습니다. Right. So thank you very much for your attention, and then let's see you. I'll see you guys in the next class.